The conference room aboard the massive space station felt cold despite the warm air flowing through the vents. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter sat at the long metal table, her hands folded neatly in front of her as she watched the alien officers study her tactical report. The holographic display above the table showed her battle plan in bright blue lines and red enemy positions. Admiral Vextar was the first to speak. The tall reptilian creature had dark green scales that reflected the room's lights. His yellow eyes looked at Carter like she was something unpleasant he had stepped on. "This is what humans call strategy?" His voice came out as a low hiss. "You want us to charge straight at the enemy like wild animals?" Carter kept her voice calm and steady. "Sir, the plan uses speed and surprise to hit their weak points before they can react. Our simulations show we can win in less than 2 hours. Instead of 8. General Zektha made a clicking sound with his insect-like mouthparts. The bug-like alien's forearms moved in. What Carter had learned meant he was not impressed. Humans still think like the primitives they were only centuries ago. You use crude weapons and basic tactics. This is not how civilized species fight wars. The third alien commander was harder to read. Commander Brightsoul looked like a tall figure made of golden light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes. Your species has been in space for such a short time. Perhaps you should learn from those who have fought among the stars for thousands of years. Captain John Martinez shifted in his seat next. To Carter, she could feel his discomfort, even without looking at him. This was supposed to be a simple training exercise between the human colonial fleet and the Galactic Defense Coalition. Instead, it had become another chance for the aliens to remind humans how new and inexperienced they were. The human approach lacks sophistication, Admiral Vextar continued. He touched a control pad, and the display changed to show the alien. Battle plan. It looked like a complex dance of ships moving in perfect formation. We have spent millennia perfecting these formations. They have never failed us. Carter studied the alien plan. It was beautiful in its own way, like watching a ballet performed by spaceships. But it was also slow and predictable. Any enemy with half a brain could see what they were going to do hours before they did it. "With respect, sir," Carter said, "your formation assumes the enemy will fight the same way you do. What if they don't follow the rules?" General Zektha's clicking became louder and faster. "Rules? These are not rules, human. These are proven methods that have protected our worlds since before your species discovered fire." Commander Sullivan, the first officer of Carter's ship, leaned forward. "Perhaps we should consider the Admiral's point, Lisa. Our methods might seem too aggressive to our allies." Carter felt her cheeks burn. Even her own people were siding with the aliens. She had spent weeks preparing this plan, running countless simulations, checking every detail. The math was perfect. The strategy would work. But no one wanted to listen because it came from a human. "The exercise begins tomorrow at 0800 hours," Admiral Vextar announced. "We will use the established coalition formation. The human ship U.S. Liberty will take position in the rear guard where they can observe and learn." The rear guard. Carter's hands tightened into fists under the table. They were being put in the back like children who needed to be kept out of. The way Captain Martinez stood up. "We understand, Admiral. The Liberty will follow coalition protocols." As the meeting ended, the alien commanders filed out of the room. Carter heard Admiral Vextar speaking to General Zektha in the corridor. Perhaps in a few hundred years, when the humans have matured, they might contribute something useful to galactic defense. The sound of clicking laughter followed his words. Doctor. Amanda Brooks waited until the room was empty, except for the human officers. "Lisa, you know your plan is solid. I've checked your numbers 3 times. The kinetic weapon approach could work." Carter appreciated the support, but it didn't make her feel much better. It doesn't matter if it works, Amanda. They've already decided we're too primitive to have good ideas. Lieutenant Ben Taylor, the youngest officer on the Liberty, spoke up. Maybe they're right to be careful. I mean, we are pretty new compared to them. They've been doing this for thousands of years. New doesn't mean wrong, Carter replied. Sometimes being new means you see things differently. Sometimes that's exactly what you need. Captain Martinez gathered his datapad and headed for the door. Lisa, I need you to dial back the enthusiasm tomorrow. We're here to build relationships with our allies, not prove how clever we are. After the captain left, Carter sat alone in the conference room. The holographic display still showed her battle plan floating in the air above the table. She reached up and touched one of the blue lines with her finger. The light felt warm against her skin. Computer, run tactical simulation Carter 7 Alpha. The display changed to show two fleets facing each other in space. The friendly ships appeared as blue dots, while the enemy showed up as red. Carter watched as her plan played out in fast motion. The human ships moved quickly, using their smaller size and better engines to dart around the enemy formation. They hit hard and fast, and moved away before the enemy could respond. The simulation ended with complete victory in 1 hour and 47 minutes. 0 friendly casualties. Computer run Coalition Standard Formation Simulation. This time, the blue ships moved slowly and carefully. They formed perfect lines and advanced like they were marching in a parade. The battle lasted 7 hours and 32 minutes. The good guys won, but 12 ships were destroyed and hundreds of people died. Carter leaned back in her chair. The aliens might have thousands of years of experience, but they were stuck, thinking the same old ways. Their enemies had probably figured out their patterns centuries ago. She thought about Earth's military history. Human generals had won impossible battles by doing things no one expected. They had beaten larger armies by being faster, smarter, and more willing to take risks. Now humans were in space, but the same principles still applied. Tomorrow's exercise would use the alien way of fighting. Carter would follow orders and stay in the rear guard like a good little primitive. But she couldn't stop thinking about what would happen if a real enemy showed up. An enemy that didn't care about traditional formations or civilized rules of warfare. The aliens might laugh at human tactics now. But Carter had a feeling that someday they would be very glad that humans thought differently. She just hoped that day wouldn't come too soon. The alarm woke Carter from a restless sleep. She rolled out of her bunk and grabbed her uniform as the ship's communication system crackled to life. All senior officers to the bridge immediately. This is not a drill. Carter's stomach dropped. Something was wrong. Training exercises didn't start with emergency alarms at 0500 hours. She ran through the corridors of the U.S. Liberty, her boots echoing off the metal walls. The bridge was chaos when she arrived. Lieutenant Taylor sat at his navigation station, his face pale as he stared at his screens. Dr. Brooks stood next to Captain Martinez, both of them looking at the main display with worried expressions. "What's the situation?" Carter asked as she took her position at the tactical station. Captain Martinez turned to face her. "Long-range sensors picked up something big heading our way. It's not part of the exercise." Carter looked at her screen and felt her blood turn cold. The display showed a massive fleet of ships moving toward their position. She counted the contacts quickly. 200 ships, maybe more. "Sir, I'm reading Void Reaper signatures," Lieutenant Taylor reported. His voice shook slightly. "This is their entire battle fleet." The Void Reapers were the nightmare that kept Coalition commanders awake at night. They were a nomadic species that traveled from system to system, consuming everything in their path. They didn't negotiate or make deals. They just destroyed and moved on. How long until they reach us? Captain Martinez asked. 6 hours, sir, Taylor replied. Maybe less if they increase speed. Dr. Brooks pulled up data files on her tablet. According to intelligence reports, they've never brought this many ships together before. This is 3 times larger than any previous Void Reaper force. Carter studied the enemy formation on her screen. The Void Reapers were using a standard expansion pattern, spreading their ships wide to cover more space. It was an effective formation for consuming planets, but it had weaknesses if you knew where to look. Captain, I need to speak with the Coalition Command, Carter said. I think I know how to stop them. Captain Martinez hesitated. Lisa, this isn't the time for your unconventional ideas. We need to follow established protocols. Sir, established protocols are designed for normal threats. This is the largest Void Reaper fleet in history. We need something different. Before Captain Martinez could respond, Admiral Vextar's voice filled the bridge through the communication system. All Coalition ships form defensive formation pattern Delta 7. Prepare for extended engagement. Carter watched as the Coalition ships began moving into their traditional formation. 150 ships arranging themselves in neat rows, creating overlapping fields of fire. It was textbook perfect and completely predictable. Captain, request permission to attend the emergency command meeting, Carter said. Captain Martinez looked at her for a long moment. Fine, but remember what I said yesterday. We're here to support our allies, not question their methods. The command meeting was held via holographic communication. Carter found herself facing the same 3 alien commanders from the previous day, but now their attitudes were different. Admiral Vextar's scales seemed darker, and his yellow eyes moved constantly as he studied tactical displays. General Zeekth's clicking had become rapid and nervous. Even Commander Brightcell's golden light seemed dimmer. The situation is clear, Admiral Vextar began. We face a superior enemy force. Our only option is to establish a strong defensive position and hold until reinforcements arrive. How long until reinforcements reach us? Captain Martinez asked. 12 hours minimum, General Zeektha replied. Possibly longer. Carter felt her heart race. The Coalition formation might hold for a few hours against a normal enemy, but the Void Reapers were different. They had weapons that could punch through standard shields, and enough ships to overwhelm any static defense. Admirals, I have a proposal, Carter said, stepping forward. Admiral Vestar's head snapped toward her. Lieutenant Commander, this is not the time for human experimentation. We need proven tactics. With respect, sir, your proven tactics assume we're fighting a civilized enemy. The Void Reapers don't follow the same rules. They'll keep coming until we're all dead, or they run out of ships. What are you suggesting? Commander Brightcell asked. His voice sounded tired. Carter activated her datapad and transmitted her tactical plan to the command group. We use their formation against them. They're spread wide to cover maximum space, but that leaves gaps we can exploit. A small, fast force could penetrate their line and hit their command ships. General Zeektha's clicking became loud and agitated. Impossible. No ship could survive in the middle of their formation. A human ship could, Carter replied. Our engines are faster, and our ships are smaller. We could get in, cause chaos, and get out before they could respond effectively. Admiral Vestar hissed with anger. You want to risk everything on a desperate gamble. This is exactly the kind of primitive thinking that will get us all killed. Admiral, your defensive formation will get us killed anyway, Carter shot back. You're asking 150 ships to hold against 200 for 12 hours. The math doesn't work. The math has worked for 1,000 years, Admiral Vextar replied. Coalition formations have never failed when properly executed. Carter felt her frustration building. They've never faced odds like this before. Sir, give me 1 ship and 30 minutes. If my plan fails, you can still use your defensive formation. Absolutely not, General Ziegtha said. We will not risk coalition ships on human recklessness. Then let me use my own ship, Carter said. The Liberty isn't officially part of the coalition fleet. If I fail, you lose one human ship instead of everyone. Captain Martinez stepped forward. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Carter, has excellent tactical instincts. Her simulations show this plan could work. Admiral Vextar's scales rippled with anger. If you proceed with this insane plan, Captain, you do so without coalition support. Your ship will be on its own. Carter looked at Captain Martinez. She could see the conflict in his eyes. Following orders meant certain death for everyone. Breaking orders meant possible death for his ship and crew. Captain, Dr. Brooks said quietly, I've run the numbers. Lisa's plan has a 60% chance of success. The defensive formation has less than 20%. Lieutenant Taylor looked up from his station. Sir, the Void Reapers have increased speed. They'll be here in 5 hours. Captain Martinez was quiet for a long moment. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Finally, he turned to Carter. How long do you need to prepare? Carter felt a surge of hope. 20 minutes, sir. Just enough time to load the kinetic penetrators and plot our jump coordinates. Admiral Vextar's image flickered with rage. Captain Martinez, you are making a grave mistake. When your ship is destroyed, remember that you chose human arrogance over proven tactics. The communication ended, leaving the human officers alone on the bridge. Captain Martinez looked at each of them in turn. Well, people, it looks like we're going to find out if human tactics work against impossible odds. Lisa, you have 20 minutes to save all our lives. Carter smiled for the first time in days. That's all I need, sir. Carter's fingers flew across her tactical console as she prepared the Liberty for battle. The ship hummed with activity as the crew loaded the kinetic penetrators into the launch tubes. These weren't fancy energy weapons like the aliens used. They were simple tungsten rods designed to punch through armor using pure speed and mass. Kinetic weapons loaded and ready, reported Chief Petty Officer Davis from the weapons bay. All tubes green across the board. Lieutenant Taylor worked at his navigation station, plotting jump coordinates with mathematical precision. Jump points calculated, Commander. I've got us 3 possible exit routes if things go bad. Dr. Brooks monitored the ship's systems from her science station. All systems running at peak efficiency. The stealth generators are online and ready. Captain Martinez stood in the center of the bridge, watching the main display. The Void Reaper fleet had grown larger as it approached. The enemy ships looked like dark insects against the stars, their hulls bristling with weapons. Lisa, are you sure about this? Captain Martinez asked quietly. Carter looked up from her console. Sir, I've run this simulation 50 times. The math is solid. We hit fast, hit hard, and get out before they know what happened. And if the math is wrong? Carter smiled grimly. Then we'll have about 30 seconds to regret it before they blow us apart. The Liberty broke away from the coalition formation and began moving toward the edge of the system. Behind them, Carter could see the alien ships arranging themselves in their perfect defensive lines. Admiral Vextar's formation looked impressive, but Carter knew it wouldn't last long against the Void Reaper swarm. Engaging stealth systems, Dr. Brooks announced. We're invisible to their sensors now. The Liberty seemed to fade from existence as the stealth generators bent light and energy around the ship's hull. Human technology had always been different from alien designs. Where the aliens focused on powerful shields and energy weapons, humans had developed speed, stealth, and kinetic weapons that could punch through any defense. Carter watched the enemy formation on her screen. The Void Reapers were spreading out in their standard attack pattern. Their massive command ship sat in the center, surrounded by smaller vessels. It was exactly what she had expected. Phase 1 begins now, Carter announced. Taylor, take us. In slow and quiet, the Liberty drifted forward like a ghost in space. The stealth systems hid them from enemy sensors, but Carter knew they had to be careful. One wrong move and 200 enemy ships would turn their weapons on the Liberty. They approached from the system's outer edge, using the gravity well of a gas giant to mask their approach. Taylor navigated through the debris field left by old mining operations, using chunks of metal and ice to hide their heat signature. "We're in position," Taylor whispered, as if speaking too loudly might give them away. Carter studied the enemy formation one last time. The Void Reapers had arranged their ships in a wide circle around the system's inner planets. Their command ship sat in the center like a spider in its web, coordinating the entire fleet through quantum communication links. "Beginning Phase 2, Carter said, "All weapons, prepare to fire on my mark." The Liberty's kinetic weapons rotated into position. The tungsten rods sat in their launch tubes, waiting to be accelerated to incredible speeds by the ship's magnetic rails. Each rod weighed only a few kilograms, but traveling at near light speed, they would hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. "Target the command ship's communication arrays first," Carter ordered, "then hit their shield generators. We need to blind them before we go for the kill." "Targets locked," Chief Davis reported. "Ready to fire on your command." Carter took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few seconds. If her plan worked, they could end this battle before it really began. If it failed, they would die alone in the darkness of space. Fire. The Liberty's weapons launched their deadly cargo in perfect silence. The tungsten rods shot through space, faster than the human eye could follow. They struck the enemy command ship before the Void Reapers even knew they were under attack. The first rod punched through the command ship's shields like they weren't there. The aliens had never developed defenses against kinetic weapons because civilized species didn't use such primitive methods. The rod tore through the ship's communication center, sending debris spinning into space. The second and third rods followed immediately, hitting the shield generators and sensor arrays. The massive Void Reaper ship went dark as its systems failed. One by one, "Direct hits on all targets," Chief Davis shouted. "Their command ship is blind and deaf." Carter smiled as chaos erupted in the enemy formation. Smaller Void Reaper ships began turning toward each other, no longer receiving orders from their command vessel. Some fired their weapons at empty space, while others collided with their neighbors. "Phase 3, Taylor. Take us into the middle of their formation." "Ma'am, that's suicide," Lieutenant Taylor protested. "Not if we're fast enough. Trust me, Ben." Taylor's hands moved across his controls, and the Liberty jumped directly into the center of the enemy fleet. They materialized between two Void Reaper cruisers, so close Carter could see the alien ships through the viewports. "All weapons, continuous fire," Carter ordered. "Hit everything that moves." The Liberty spun like a dancer, firing kinetic rounds in all directions. The tungsten rods found their targets with devastating effect. Void Reaper ships exploded as the primitive human weapons tore through their advanced hulls. Commander Sullivan, who had been quiet since the battle began, finally spoke up. "Lisa, this is incredible. They can't touch us." It was true. The Liberty was too small and too fast for the enemy weapons to track. The Void Reapers had designed their ships to fight other large vessels in organized formations. They had never faced a single small ship that could appear anywhere and strike without warning. "Their formation is collapsing," Dr. Brooks reported. "Multiple ships are retreating toward the system's edge." Carter watched her tactical display as the enemy fleet fell apart. Ships that had seemed unstoppable just minutes before were now fleeing in panic. The loss of their command vessel had broken their coordination completely. "Taylor, get us out of here," Carter ordered. "Jump to exit point 3. The Liberty vanished from the middle of the enemy formation and reappeared near the system's outer planets. Behind them, the Void Reaper fleet continued to collapse. Ships collided with each other as panicked crews tried to escape. Others fired randomly into space, hitting their own vessels by mistake. Captain Martinez stared at the tactical display in amazement. How long did that take? Dr. Brooks checked her chronometer. 28 minutes and 37 seconds. "Sir, the entire enemy fleet is in retreat," Lieutenant Taylor reported. "They're jumping out of the system as fast as they can." Carter leaned back in her chair and let out a long breath. Her hands were shaking from adrenaline, but she felt better than she had in years. The plan had worked exactly as she had predicted. "Communications coming in from the Coalition fleet," Commander Sullivan announced. "Admiral Vexstar wants to speak with us immediately." Carter wondered what the alien commander would say now. His perfect formation hadn't fired a single shot, while one human ship had destroyed the largest Void Reaper fleet in history, using weapons the aliens considered primitive. "Put him through," Captain Martinez said. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Vexstar's reptilian face. 4. Once, the alien commander didn't look angry or dismissive. He looked shocked. Admiral Vexstar's yellow eyes stared out from the main screen. For the first time since Carter had met him, the reptilian commander seemed to have lost his voice. His scales had turned a lighter shade of green, which Carter had learned meant confusion or shock in his species. "Admiral," Captain Martinez said carefully, "the Void Reaper threat has been eliminated. All enemy ships have fled the system." The alien commander's mouth opened and closed several times before any sound came out. "Captain Martinez, I need a full report on what just happened. Our sensors showed your ship disappearing and reappearing in impossible locations. The enemy fleet collapsed in less than 30 minutes. Carter stepped forward. "Sir, we used a combination of stealth technology, kinetic weapons, and rapid strike tactics to target their command structure. Once we destroyed their coordination network, their formation fell apart." General Zeektha appeared on the screen next to Admiral Vexstar. The insect-like alien's 4 arms moved nervously, and his clicking had become very quiet. "Lieutenant Commander." "Carter, how did your weapons penetrate their shields so easily?" "Our plasma cannons barely scratch Void Reaper armor. We use tungsten rods accelerated to near light speed," Carter explained. "Simple physics, sir. Mass times velocity equals force. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving that fast." Commander Brightsoul's golden form flickered into view. His light seemed dimmer than usual. "I do not understand. These are primitive weapons. How can they be more effective than our advanced technology?" Carter thought about how to explain it without sounding disrespectful. "Sir, sometimes the old ways work better than the new ways. Your enemies have learned to defend against your weapons over thousands of years. They never expected to face something different." The 3 alien commanders looked at each other through their communication links. Carter could see them having a silent conversation using gestures and expressions she didn't fully understand. Dr. Brooks stepped up beside Carter. "Admirals, I have the complete tactical analysis ready for your review. The engagement data shows how kinetic weapons can be integrated with existing coalition forces." Admiral Vexstar finally found his voice again. "Dr. Brooks, please transmit all data to Coalition Command immediately. We need to study these tactics in detail." "Already done, sir," Dr. Brooks replied with a small smile. Captain Martinez cleared his throat. "Admiral, what are your orders for?" "The Liberty?" For a long moment, no one spoke. The alien commanders seemed to be thinking about something important. Finally, Admiral Vextar straightened his shoulders and looked directly at Carter. Lieutenant Commander Carter, I owe you an apology. Yesterday, I called your methods primitive and dismissed your strategic thinking. Today, you saved not just the Coalition fleet, but possibly thousands of worlds that the Void Reapers would have consumed. Carter felt her cheeks turn red. Sir, I was just doing my job. No, General Zeektha interrupted. You did much more than your job. You showed us that we had become too comfortable with our old ways of thinking. We assumed that because our methods had worked before, they would always work. Commander Brightsall's light grew brighter. In my species culture, we have a saying that translates roughly to, wisdom comes from many sources. We forgot this truth when we laughed at human tactics. Admiral Vextar continued, I am formally requesting that the human colonial fleet assign tactical advisors to all Coalition battle groups. We need to learn these new methods of warfare. Carter looked at Captain Martinez, who nodded encouragingly. Sir, I would be honored to help train Coalition forces. But I think the real lesson here isn't about weapons or tactics. It's about being willing to try new approaches when the old ones aren't working. Explain, General Zeektha said, his clicking becoming more interested. Carter gathered her thoughts. The Void Reapers had learned to fight against traditional Coalition tactics. They knew exactly what to expect from your formations and weapons. But they had never faced human methods before, so they couldn't adapt fast enough. Dr. Brooks added, It's not that human technology is better than alien technology. It's that different approaches solve different problems. Combining our methods with yours could make the Coalition much stronger. Commander Brightsall's form pulsed with what Carter had learned was excitement in his species. Yes, I see. Diversity of thought creates strength. We have been thinking like a single mind for too long. Lieutenant Taylor looked up from his navigation station. Sirs, I'm receiving reports from across the sector. The Void Reaper retreat has been confirmed by multiple sources. They're jumping out of this entire region of space. Admiral Vextar's scales rippled with what Carter now recognized as relief. Excellent news. Captain Martinez, please bring the Liberty back to the station. I believe we have much to discuss about the future of Coalition tactics. As the communication ended, Carter felt a hand on her shoulder. Commander Sullivan stood behind her, smiling for the first time since she had known him. Lisa, I owe you an apology too. I thought your ideas were too risky. I was wrong. Captain Martinez stepped forward. The whole crew performed exceptionally today. But Lisa, your tactical brilliance made the difference between victory and disaster. Dr. Brooks pulled up the after-action report on her tablet. The final count shows complete success with 0 friendly casualties. The Void Reaper fleet lost approximately 30% of their ships and fled with the remainder damaged. Chief. Davis's voice came over the communication system from the weapons bay. Commander Carter, I've never seen anything like what those kinetic rounds did to enemy armor. The crew is calling you the Carnegie Queen down here. Carter laughed. Please don't let that nickname spread, Chief. 3 hours later, the Liberty docked at the Coalition station. Carter was surprised to see crowds of alien personnel waiting. On the docking bay, as she walked down the ramp, they began making sounds that she realized were their versions of cheering. Admiral Vextar waited at the bottom of the ramp. He approached Carter and performed what she recognized as a formal bow of respect in his culture. Lieutenant Commander Carter, the Coalition owes you a debt that can never be fully repaid. You have shown us that strength comes not from stubbornly following old methods, but from being willing to learn new ones. 2 weeks later, Carter found herself standing in front of a mixed class of human and alien officer cadets at the Coalition Military Academy. The young faces looking back at her showed curiosity instead of mockery. Today we're going to discuss unconventional tactical thinking, Carter began. The most important lesson is this: just because something has always been done one way doesn't mean it's the only way or the best way. A young Saurian cadet raised her clawed hand. Commander, how do you know when to break the rules? Carter smiled. You break the rules when following them will get everyone killed. The key is understanding why the rules exist in the first place, and then figuring out if those reasons still apply to your current situation. A human cadet asked, "What's the most important quality for a tactical officer?" "Adaptability," Carter replied without hesitation. "The ability to look at a problem from different angles and find solutions that others might miss. Sometimes the best answer is the one nobody expects." As the class continued, Carter noticed how eagerly the alien students took notes when she discussed human tactical concepts. The same ideas that had been laughed at just weeks before were now being studied seriously by future coalition officers. After class, Carter walked through the station's observation deck and looked out at the stars. The coalition fleet moved through space in new formations that combined human speed and flexibility with alien firepower and coordination. It was beautiful to watch. Her communication device beeped with a message from Admiral Stone back at Human Fleet Command. Carter, excellent work. The coalition has requested a permanent exchange program. How do you feel about teaching aliens how to think like humans? Carter typed back her reply. I'd be honored, sir. Someone has to show them that being different isn't a weakness. She looked back out at the stars and smiled. The galaxy was a big place with room for many different ways of thinking. And sometimes the new guy with the crazy ideas was exactly what everyone needed.